If you're an aspiring CA, chances are you're also an aspiring business owner. But when does the business building begin? In undergrad? During articles? Post articles? Today, we have an aspiring CA putting that dream of becoming a business owner into action. He is a founder of Apti, the tool that's helping students discover, apply for, and land their dream SAICA, SAIT, and CIMA articles. Third-year CA trainee at VAT IT, Nic Forshaw. He will be sharing with us his story on the road to CA and the lessons he has learned along the way. We also chat about CA as a tool for entrepreneurship, pivoting from audit to entrepreneurship articles and honors, why most investors don't add value, the difference between accounting and finance, and more. Enjoy. My travelers on the road, my aspiring CAs. This is a super fast one. It just dawned on me when I was meeting a lot of people at this one networking event that LinkedIn is the space, guys. If you are a young professional, if you're an aspiring young professional, I think LinkedIn, and I'm making a particularly special notice before the episode, is the place to join. So if you're not on LinkedIn, I really highly advise. And if you are on LinkedIn, please send me a connection request. I am an aspiring CA just like you, and I think we should all be connected as aspiring CAs. So join LinkedIn if you're not on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. It'll be linked in the show notes. But with that, on to the episode. Welcome back, my people. This is the Road to CA podcast, the show for aspiring chartered accountants to inspire, empower, and inform the difference makers of tomorrow. Today, we're joined by an action man. Hailing from KZN, he's come to the city of gold in pursuit of more business knowledge, experience, and expertise. Hence, his pursuit of the CISA qualification. And he should be signing off soon as a CISA. Woo! We're almost there, Nick. We're almost there. He's passionate about entrepreneurship and is channeling this passion through Apti, the service helping SAICA, SAIT, and CIMA students find their dream articles program. Passing his undergrad with distinction and his postgrad basically with distinction. Man, come on. At UCT, he is now doing his articles at VAT IT in Joburg. Most importantly, he's a runner. He likes to play piano. He likes to cook. And he loves to trot the globe. He's a founder. He's a fellow traveler on the road. We're joined by Nic Forshaw. Nick, how are you, man?
Oh, good. Thanks, and you, Lunga. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Really, really appreciate it.
I'm fantastic. And I'm excited. We've been chatting for a while.
That we have, yeah.
Through Apti and through, obviously, the show. And we're finally here, man. We're finally here.
I'm so excited, Lunga. I must say, when I saw you sign up and we had that first meeting, man, that left me so excited. Like, gave me so much, like, energy. I was like, yes, we're onto something here. And I'm so glad that it's found us in this position.
I'm humbled, man. I'm humbled. And what you guys are doing at Apti is amazing. But we're going to get to Apti. Let's go back first. Let's go back to get to know Nick. This is what we do in the Road to CA. Where did this whole CA chartered accountancy thing start?
Yeah, a good question, Alunga. I don't think a lot of people kind of grow up and say, oh, I want to be an accountant. That's what I want to do. Yeah. I was the exception to that rule. That was me. Whoa. I think I knew I wanted to go into business from a young age. And I knew that kind of the best way to get there was to be a CA. Yeah.
Who made you aware of that? Because not everyone's aware that the CA is a grade in.
Yeah. So my dad's a CA. I think that was kind of the first look I had at what chartered accountants can kind of do. And yeah, I think that was always like a path I wanted to take, was to just go into business. And then there's no kind of, in my opinion, better base than to be a CA in South Africa for that route. So yeah, I think I knew I wanted to do it from a young age. And then when I actually started learning accounting, I was like, yep, this clicks for me. Debits and credits, they make sense. I think it's one of those subjects you either get it and it's all right, or you're like, no, this is not for me. Move on. And I loved it. And yeah, that's kind of where it started.
Okay, and what did your dad do as a CA?
So he also a bit of an entrepreneur. Do you know cash converters?
Whoa!
Yeah, he kind of brought that to South Africa. He's been involved in that. And yeah, that's kind of been his entrepreneurial journey. So I think a lot of lessons learned there.
That is crazy. You know, your upbringing, seeing a CA entrepreneur at work, I think that can change you.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that can change you because a lot of people in even the course, the entrepreneurs or the aspiring entrepreneurs, they sometimes they don't see what the 7 years of grind, like what it's really going to get to. And I feel like you had that the whole time. You knew, dude, focus, get the experience, you know, like, and there's even now this entrepreneurship articles that you're doing.
Yeah, that's it. I think that really opened the door for me a lot. I think as much as I was like, cool, accounting's great, when I got to university, I realized auditing was not. That was not for me. And at that stage, I'd kind of signed with the Big Four. I was going to go and do my articles in audit. And at the last minute, literally in my honors year, pivoted away from that. In my honors year, it was after the first test week of honors. After that auditing paper, I just thought, yeah, I can't do this for 3 years. That's not going to happen. And so glad that I did make the pivot. It's really opened up a lot of doors for me. It's led me down like a very interesting path. I've gained a lot of experience. And yeah, I think there's this idea that a lot of CAs have that you just need to make it through articles and then your career can start. And my experience has been that's not true. It's actually those 3 years. It's such an opportunity to really launch your career, set you up with a strong foundation, and that might be doing it in audit, but your career doesn't have to start at the end of articles. You can really, it's like the most valuable learning period. You have 3 years where you're a trainee, you can ask questions, you can ask to be on projects. Nobody expects too much from you. It's the best opportunity to learn.
Man, and one of the 5 fundamental principles of the CPC, the SAICA CPC. We all know the SAICA CPC. If you don't, if you're like a first year or high school student, it's the Code of Professional Conduct. And there's 5 principles that all chartered accountants and aspiring chartered accountants must adhere to. The one that I'm specifically referring to now is professional competence and due care. On that, not to be negligent, you should never be negligent, but there is a level of a forgiveness that you've mentioned that a trainee has to break something, for an example, like to break something within a non-negligent boundary, and that is huge. I think being able to break things, being able to experiment with your career at this article stage, it's so powerful for the rest of your career, because if you can learn how to break things early, which I think is a huge skill, I think it's something that you can learn in articles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what your articles is supposed to be. It's this period where you're learning, but under supervision. You're working, but there's somebody looking over your shoulder just saying, yeah, you're on the right track, or okay, let's bring it back this way. And I think that's an environment where you can really start to learn business.
Not viewing the articles program as a tick box activity, but as a launch pad. I think
that's it.
That's the common, that's the statement for this story that you've been telling us. I'm also curious, Nic, what have been those salient lessons through your articles? Those things that this was a moment that changed maybe your business, maybe it changed you. what were those? What are some of those, or maybe 2, 3, even one of those moments?
Yeah. I think there's kind of two that I've seen. The one is if you put people in the right position, they will thrive. If you put good people in a position that they're not suited for, you're just going to shut them down. You're never going to actually see that like the strengths that they have come to the fore. So I think a key thing across any business is just getting good people in the right positions and let them flourish. And then the other is that thing of having good people and working with good people. That's Luke and I met in articles. So I think that's kind of testament to if you kind of working with the right people, it's inevitable that something good will come from it. But yeah, I think it's really fundamental to any business is just having really good people and making sure they're in the right position. At VAT IT, you do rotations through different business units. There were some that I loved, there were some that I didn't love, and you could kind of see that in the output. It's like my first position was in a research and development role. Didn't love it. It was a good learning experience, really good, but very like legislatively heavy, which is not my passion. And I think that was kind of like, a good learning opportunity. But as soon as I moved into something new, I could feel that like passion reignited. And I was like,
what was
great.
the new thing?
Back to finance. I think found my roots. Loved that. Did that for a bit. Moved into a more operational role. Also great growth. And then found my way back to finance. And that's kind of where I've stuck it out.
I see. Okay. You see how it was the sort of divergence, the meandering that led you to reinforce the belief that, I'm a finance dude.
Yeah,
but I think it was important to go outside.
Absolutely. I think I kind of had this idea that I wanted to be in finance or a financial kind of role, but I think you don't know until you've tried something else. And it also, being in an operational role and then coming back to finance, really like your understanding of the business as a whole is like so much better then, and that translates into giving the numbers a bit of a story. You understand what that top line revenue and bottom line costs actually mean, because you've seen it on the ground, you've dealt with clients, you've kind of run things a little bit on a grassroots level, and now you can be like, cool, looking at the numbers tells a bit more of a story.
And this gets into that idea that we were just chatting about now of range. When you know also the operations side, there's a more detailed and I think valuable story that you can tell. Because do you want to get into investments? Do you want to eventually go deep into that realm?
That's, I think, a difficult question to answer, because it's something I've always enjoyed. Love it. I like finance and like investments at varsity was like my passion. For a long time I thought maybe I want to go to a bank to do articles, maybe I want to go like kind of the investment route, and I decided not to do that for articles. And while I think it's still a big passion, I've also found that kind of being involved in the entrepreneurial space, building businesses is as fulfilling, if not more. So I don't know if it's a professional career choice I'd take and make and go kind of full-time into the investment space, but it's something that I definitely will always be involved in some kind of way, shape or form, in like a personal capacity or whatever.
Yeah, and it even gets me thinking of, there's a guy, an internet entrepreneur, his name's Alex Omozi, and he's a huge marketer online. He actually he runs his private equity firm, acquisition.com. So that is definitely, it's private equity, they invest in companies, but their whole investment approach is buying stakes in companies that they can scale. Like that's their thing. Like this is where investments and entrepreneurship collide.
Yeah, that's that Venn diagram coming together.
That's a Venn diagram coming together. And I like, would you do that?
Oh yeah, I think that would be really a cool merging point of passions. It's definitely something that I think, especially in South Africa, there's a huge need for. Is if you can like solve problems and facilitate growth of companies, it's like, yeah, the dream.
Like, and I think it was a tongue-in-cheek remark, a bit facetious, but David Rubenstein, who's a huge private equity player in the world, he founded Carlyle Group, which is one of the biggest private equity firms in the world. They started off just on leveraged buyouts. So just to explain, like a leveraged buyout, for those who don't know, it's where a company where a firm wants to buy a company that is typically not performing at their best, and because they know they can fix that company, they know exactly what it requires. They take a lot of debt to be able to finance that acquisition, and so it's a leveraged, i.e. the debt buyout. They're buying the company. So the whole firm was built on leveraged buyouts. He says that the highest calling of man, very tongue-in-cheek, is private equity. but like, still the value of that, what you just mentioned, growing companies, obviously you're going to invest in them because you need skin in the game, but the value of the investor, I think it's not understood outside of this world of the people who know finance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. It's a critical player in the ecosystem of entrepreneurship, I think, is typically the people with like the best ideas and who are passionate about making it happen still need like the resources to back them to make it happen.
Yes. And you said resources. I love that you said resources, because it's not just capital that investors come with. They come with networks.
Yeah.
They come with mentorship, expertise.
Yeah.
And that so there was this other guy, I forgot his name, but he mentioned how he was an Indian guy. He mentioned that most investors don't add value. I was like, oh, but like they come with money. But sometimes an investor will bring their money, but then bring this undue pressure. Like let's say, for an example, you are running a JSE listed company. Investors come and they've scaled it to eventually go IPO. If your investors are messaging you, hey, look at what the competitors are doing, the CEO, they might be actually interfering with the operation, with the vision that the CEO has been trusted to go and realize by pressuring the person to focus on the next quarterly updates, you know? So in those cases, I see investors sometimes potentially taking away value, even with bringing capital. So I love that you said resources.
Yeah, that's it. It's definitely more than just kind of throwing money at a problem, you know? It's that especially when an idea is kind of in its infancy, I think, it's taking it from that to making it a reality.
And scaling is not easy.
Scaling is not.
I mean, you guys at Apti, I'm sure you've already hit like big numbers, but like scaling.
That's it. I think something that everyone says when you're like starting a business is they're like, just know it's going to take longer than you think and it's going to cost more than you think.
Yeah.
And every time you're like, I'm the exception. No, it won't. This will be quick and cheap. It's not. Yeah. But that's exactly it. I think growing always takes a little bit longer than you expect, and there's always going to be hurdles that you don't expect. But I think it's also, you kind of get caught up in the day-to-day. It feels like it's flat, but then you look back 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and you're like, wow, this is really, you can actually then see the growth. So I think sometimes it's also good to take a step back, look at it on a macro scale and be like, wow, look where we've come from.
That's also huge. Being able to, I'm trying to find the words for this, but being able to not see results, not see, quick results, kind of front end results, being able to stay in that game is what the big players are able to do. It's like, if you think about anything in tech, most of the businesses aren't profitable for years.
Yeah.
Because they're focused on product, they're focused on scaling, they're focused on everything other than those things that are these quick quick fire metrics.
Yeah.
So there's the lagging metric of product in business that I think most people don't focus on.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's you've absolutely nailed it. It's you're not always going to see those quick wins or easily identifiable growth. And I think again, speaking like accountants want to see that year on year or week on week percentage growth. Yeah. It's not always going to be that. It's going to be like you say, like a better product or a better user experience or whatever it is. So sometimes I think also reframing your metrics of growth is a good thing at a certain stage of your growth.
Profit isn't always progress.
Yeah. Hopefully at some point the progress leads to profit.
Yes,
but for sure.
Profit's not always progress. Okay. I was also curious about, because now you've studied the whole accounting thing. We're all studying accounting, general sort of range of different subjects. But now you've been in a finance role. Can you just explain the difference between accounting and finance? Because I think we sometimes synonymously accounting, finance, same thing. It's not the same.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of overlap, especially in my role. So I've kind of taken the more accounting side of the finance. I've gone that way. So I'm a financial manager for our financial reporting. So a lot of that
at TechX.
Yeah. A lot of that is
TechX is a subsidiary of the VAT IT group.
VAT IT group, yeah. It's a complicated one, but yes, that's where we're at. So I've kind of done more of the accounting side of the finance. So it is my first role when I was in finance was literally processing journal entries, doing the accounting. It's now a lot more about doing the financial reporting. So at year end, doing some of the disclosure, doing the actual drafting the Fs.
That's accounting.
That's accounting. But then I think that's a small portion of it. A lot of it is more of kind of strategic finance. It's things like budgeting. It's things like forecasting, variance analysis, looking at profitability, looking at cash management strategies, doing a little bit of hedging strategies. All of those things you learn as kind of the peripherals to your accounting journey, that 2-week module on hedging or whatever it is.
Well, that little mark for the discussion question.
That's it. Yeah. What other considerations?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a lot of that. But I think my role is typically more, it would be more considered like accounting finance. Whereas I think, if you go more traditional corporate finance or even banking finance, that isn't very accounting driven per se. That's a lot more potentially mergers and acquisitions, being like a third party to transactions that are happening between businesses, or going the private equity route, I reckon would also be considered finance. And even within our team, the finance team at TechX, we've split it between reporting finance and operational finance. And operational finance is a lot more of the day-to-day, month-to-month, managing clients and following up on debt and, making sure that invoicing processes are right and all of that. So, that's also an aspect of finance. I think it is a lot broader than just accounting. But I think key to any of it is understanding accounting. And what I found really fascinating when I first ended up in a finance position in a corporate is that it almost doesn't matter what the business is doing. If you understand accounting and you've learned accounting, you'll understand what's happening in the business from the numbers. Like you look at it and you're like, I know what revenue is, I know what cost of sales is. You can see year-on-year growth. You can kind of look at trends, metrics, look at an income statement, balance sheet, and it doesn't matter what the company's selling or what service they're providing. You can understand this company. And I think that's a skill set that you develop without realizing over your university journey, is you're learning these things in isolation, and then suddenly you look at a company from a numbers perspective and you're like, oh yeah, I get that.
We take that for granted.
For sure.
I think it's called the curse of knowledge, where you're like, hey dude, like I'm even thinking about when you're calculating for standard costing, the sales variance, right? For an example, you're calculating the sales variance. It's like, dude, obviously you take gross profit because, you're you're always going to have the cost of sale, the cost to sell. So to use gross profit to calculate the variance. Most people don't, like a lot of people outside of this world don't really understand the fundamental that you generally want to be looking at gross profit.
Yeah.
Not revenue.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to have the cost of sale.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, and it's like when you don't know that, you could be running a business that is essentially not profitable, that will not survive, but you just don't know. Because you're like, oh, we're making money. Oh, we're getting so much cash. Look at this cash, guys. Look at this cash.
Yeah.
But you just don't know that. For an example, literally this morning I was listening to Alex Hormozi's The Game. That podcast is fantastic. and he was mentioning this specific ratio that people should just understand because it makes a lot of sense, which is lifetime value to cost to acquire a company, right? So LTV to CAC. And that ratio will tell you how much basically you have to spend on acquiring a customer. So if the value you get out of a customer is, let's say for an example, 10,000 Rand over their lifetime. So someone buys from your company various products over some time and you get 10,000 out of your customer, that's how much your customer is worth, then your cost to acquire a customer is 2,000 and you would have a LTV to CAC of 5 to 1, right? That tells you, okay, I've got basically 80%. I've got like a factor of 4 to scale. So now I've still got space. So okay, I've got this 2K that I'm spending, and I've got this 10K that I get out of a customer. I've got this space of like, you know, what 80%, so 8K to scale up to spend on, you know, just scaling basically.
Yeah.
People don't get that, and then when you actually get into the nitty gritty of it, people think that, oh, I'm getting 10K from a customer, but then that could be revenue, not gross profit. So then, they just don't know that.
Yeah.
When you're not looking at gross profit, when you're not looking at the things that we in this finance world know, you literally might be running an unprofitable business. So maybe it's actually 5K. So you've actually only got 3K to scale. So now margins are, you don't have space. So understanding these things is where we can operate from a factual place.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, it's something that I think we take for granted a little bit, that we're learning these things without even realizing it. And it really does stand you in good stead. And I think that's why the CA designation is still so valued. It really is, even if you're not going to be an accountant or in finance, your understanding of business that comes from that is invaluable. For sure. Like I was chatting with my brother in a previous episode about how when you're the numbers guy, you bring everyone to the facts. You bring everyone to the bottom line. Hey guys, whoa, I get it. It's a really cool opportunity, but like NPV. That's it.
Net present value, guys, you know?
Yeah.
So Nic, Apti. Why fill out an Apti profile? Like why? Like when I can just go and apply to the firms. I know about the firms. I know about the big four. Why Apti? What is Apti? And what can a student get out of it?
Oh, brilliant, Alunga. Yeah, I think taking a step back, looking at kind of my journey and where I came from a CA perspective, because I think that really birthed the idea of Apti. Like I said, I was going to go into auditing, Big Four, great. Last minute decided not to. And I went to this entrepreneurial top program. And because of that, kind of had a lot of people asking me like, how did you know about this? Do you still become a CA? Do you write the same board exams? Do you get the same qualifications? All of that. Short answer is yes, just by the way. But what it kind of made me realize is that a lot of people, a lot of students don't really know what's out there for your articles journey. And I think we kind of have this narrative told to us that it's kind of the Big Four are your best options, potentially your only options. A lot of people know about the banks, and maybe one or two top programs. But, and I think we've spoken about this before, that there's 600 registered training officers.
600.
Which is crazy. And, how do you find the time to go and just find all 600 of those when you're trying to understand deferred tax? You as a student, you just don't have time. And I think then even more than that is, how do you decide which one is best for you? And I think that's something that we've always said is, there's no bad articles program, or there's no wrong articles program, but there can be a wrong one for you.
Yeah.
Not everybody, myself included, is made for audit. But then again, not everybody will enjoy a top program. We've kind of seen the effect or kind of the downside of doing the wrong articles. You can see people don't enjoy it. They kind of have a countdown on their phone to like, when am I done articles? When can I start my real life? We've seen it. It's really it's quite sad. So yeah, I think that's where we're trying to kind of bridge the gap to say, you just make it through varsity. You make sure you pass. That's your number one focus. We'll take care of the rest. We'll help you along your journey. We'll get you a digital CV, because I think as a student, you don't even know what to put on your CV. You don't know what's relevant, what's not relevant. We'll help with those applications. Or I think we'll first, help you decide what's the best route for you. What are the options available? What are the best available options for you? There's options outside the country, there's options in the country, there's audit, non-audit, banking, consulting, entrepreneurship programs, industry programs. There's so many, and I think making that decision not only is like difficult, it's also really important. The Big Four are great for the right people. They really are. It sets you up so well. But I've seen people who have absolutely thrived in a smaller audit environment because it's a lot more hands-on. Your learning curve is steeper. You get to see a lot more companies. You see a lot more industries. And you can see people just absolutely love that aspect of it. So I think it is quite a personal choice that is really difficult to make without the right information.
Yeah.
And that's really the gap we're trying to bridge. And then help you all the way to kind of first day of articles, making sure you prep for an interview, helping you out on like, where do I apply? How do I actually like submit all those applications? Why do I have to fill this out like 100 times for 100 different offices? Simplify the process, make it as admin free as possible for students.
Admin free. Oh, that is a beautiful word. Admin free.
Yeah, that's the kind of idea. And Luke and I were both there. We applied to like so many different firms, went through the journey. I know how time consuming it is. I know how it's a stress for students. You don't have time for it. My PGDA year was like the busiest year of my life. Like I was like, I don't have time to do all of this.
You really don't.
You don't. But the cost of not doing it properly is ending up at a firm you don't enjoy, and 3 years of your life suddenly becomes not enjoyable. You start your career on the back foot.
I forgot where the quote was from, but like I'm going to paraphrase it. We live under the delusion that one day, then we're going to start really living life. Only then. Only when I've finished my undergrad. Only when I've finished my postgrad. Only when I've finished my articles. But then you get your CA. It's like, I'm still not when is life going to start? And I feel like Apti really helps to understand that you can start life today.
That's it.
You can start life today. You can thrive. And I love your slogan, never waste talent, because you are wasting your talent when you don't make the conscious decision of where you would ideally be. It is so important because, if you go into a consulting route, but you're not that type of person, you've essentially... With an Apti around, now you've wasted. It's not even a lesson. Apti literally solves the problem because they have, obviously, like with your platform, you ask the right questions. what was it? The culture assessment?
Yeah, that's it. Our company culture assessment.
Company culture assessment. Can you explain that for everyone?
Yeah. I think Luke will be better at telling you the detail of it.
He'll give us the detail.
He'll give us the detail.
Luke's Nic's co-founder, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. But at a high level, once we've kind of looked at what stream of articles is kind of best, auditing, banking, industry, entrepreneurship, all of those, within those streams, the firms are so different from a company culture perspective. And I think it's a term that kind of gets thrown around a little bit loosely.
Yes.
What is company culture? It's kind of this abstract concept, but it's quite an important factor in how much you enjoy your work environment. What we've done, which I think is really cool, is we've split it up into different dichotomies. So looking at, for example, how you get fulfillment from your job. The one we split into is earning versus learning. How much do you benefit kind of tangible incentives, money-based, earning, versus the opportunity for growth. Are you happy to forego a little bit of monetary gain to learn new skill sets, new just grow your learning. So that's interesting. People are split on that. It's not kind of everybody wants to just earn as much as they possibly can. Not everybody is like, no, I need to learn as much as I can. And I think it also changes over your career. And we do that on a number of levels. But what we then do is kind of do a similar thing with the companies, and we understand how it is that they incentivize people in their workplaces. Do they say, if you work hard, you'll get a bonus? Or is it, you know what, you've got extra study leave and we'll pay for you to do your CFA or whatever it is? It's very different metrics of how you incentivize. And we do that kind of across the board with a lot of different dichotomies. And it kind of just encapsulates what it's like to work in a place. And I think the cost of getting that wrong is that you could be doing maybe the right type of work, but in an environment you don't enjoy, and then you're not going to enjoy it. And I think that's something we've seen where people are kind of in the wrong environment and it just doesn't click. One of the benefits, I think, of being in the VAT IT ecosystem is there's a lot of different business units within it. I mean, we mentioned TechX as one of the subsidiaries, but there's VAT IT, there's WTax, there's a few. And all of those have their own company culture. And it was something that didn't really click until I saw it in action, and trainees can move between the different ones, and you can actually feel the difference when you go into the different buildings. Some are slightly more corporate, some are a little bit more startup-y, a little bit more Wild West. I think it's something that's really important, is to try and get that match right of what drives you, and how is the company driven. Another example is kind of how you like to receive feedback. That's one of the other dichotomies we do, which is not really something you look at, but some people love the structure of being like, cool, every 2 weeks I'm going to have a check-in with my manager and it's going to be a formal, this is what's been good, this is what hasn't. Other people enjoy just kind of like on the fly, like, you'll get a bit of feedback more loosely and you don't know when it's coming. You may not get it for a month, you may get 3 days in a row. The other is just about kind of the general business environment, is how much structure is there? Do you have a linear career path? Is it you move all over the place? Sometimes people are like, no, I want structure. I want to know where I'm going. I know that I need to tick these boxes to move and progress. Other people are like, why would I want that box? I want to be a little bit free. And all of those are like very important decisions when deciding kind of where to work. And it's so interesting to see that very similar companies, from an outside perspective, maybe like 2 audit firms or 2 top programs, can look very similar, but that experience within like the company culture can be so different.
How do you get information on the specific firm's company culture?
We do it in kind of 2 approaches. The one is we have a very long questionnaire for the companies, which they don't love filling out because it takes a long time, but it's very in-depth to really understand kind of the other side of the coin of what we ask candidates, So we'll ask about, what opportunities are there for growth and learning, what's the kind of earning structure, those kind of things.
Yes.
How do you give feedback, all of those. And then engaging a lot with people on the ground. So speaking to trainees, speaking to maybe training officers, people like that, to get a little bit more of a holistic understanding. And what we've done, which is really exciting, and this is where I think Luke will go in depth, is we've done it in a way now where we're actually asking old trainees our company culture assessment, so people who have completed their articles, and also asking them questions about, once they've filled it out, did you enjoy your articles? Do you think you made the right choice? Are you still friends with the people you worked with? Things like that. And what you're seeing is a trend of, okay, all these people who kind of landed here, and here on the dichotomies, and were all at Deloitte, for example, really enjoyed their experience. If you see somebody new coming in with similar traits, you're like, good, high chance they'll be a fit for Deloitte. And I think that's where it's getting really exciting, is we're getting all of this like historic data that we're building into this knowledge base. And the idea is that it's going to kind of take it to a whole nother level of being able to, even before you might know for yourself, being like, okay, cool, actually this would be a good company culture for you. Very exciting.
That's huge. And for me, the big moment is like how business is data today. It's data. It's data,
100%.
data. And it's
100%.
crazy that you're doing the dance, like you're literally in your company, you're dealing with data and you're learning how to leverage it.
No, completely. Business is data. And I think that's why we kind of, you would have seen the experience of signing up to Apti. Like, there's a lot of questions. I don't think it takes like very long, but it's very detailed. Because it's kind of, the more we know about you, the better. That's it. So yeah, it's an exciting place to be.
Sure. Guys, if you are, if you don't want to like spend a lot of time, because applying to places takes long. It really does take long. Literally, it can take like 30 to an hour just to apply to one place in some of these applications. If you want to just shorten that a bit, not apply to 600 plus articles programs, Apti will be linked in the show notes. I think that this is a really valuable service for students in accounting currently. Hopefully you guys can expand, but everything that is a struggle that shouldn't be, Apti's really helping with.
Thanks.
It shouldn't be a struggle to find a place that works for you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a struggle, because I back the idea that you can live now if you just find the right place.
For sure.
You can live now.
Yeah. And I think for some reason, it's taken a lot more seriously post articles, People spend a lot of time saying, cool, after this, where am I going to go? Is this going to be the right place for me? But the same level of thought isn't really given, I think, at an articles level, which I understand. You have nothing to compare it against. You don't have the time to do the research. It's all fresh. It's all new.
And we all think about it like a tick box.
100%. It is. It's literally undergrad, postgrad, articles, career starts. But that's what we're trying to kind of change the narrative of. It doesn't have to be 3 years that you don't enjoy.
Nic, that was fantastic. So guys, again, linked in the show notes, Apti, check it out. If you could go back to first year, second year, maybe even high school you, what would you tell him?
That's probably the toughest question you've asked me, Alunga. I think if I could go back to kind of first year, second year me, I think I'd say, trust the process, that it's all going to kind of pan out. I think, you can kind of find yourself being like, what am I going to do? Where are things going to go? and it can kind of stress you out. You're like, I don't really know where my life's going to end up. I can tell you then I didn't think I would be doing this now, but things kind of have a way of panning out and working out, and when things seem like they probably might not be going right, it's okay. Like things have a way of working themselves out. Yeah.
I would say in that there's like sort of two sides for me, because I think you can always be pretty positive in any situation. If you're feeling like, yo, I'm not progressing, or yo, it's so tough. Firstly, whatever you go through, you grow through. So if it's a struggle, just know if you're taking notes, the pain actually will benefit you. I promise you.
Yeah.
Take notes, feel the pain, embrace it. Don't shrug it away. Don't sort of dismiss it. What you go through, you grow through. But also, in any given situation where you're putting yourself out there, where you're trying your best, you have to try. Always factor in chance. Just one conversation at that one networking event, at that one VAC work program, at that, the grocery store can literally change your life. One moment can change your life. And I feel like chance, for me, is such a motivating factor. Like, on the end of every opportunity that you try your best in, there is great possibility.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's that thing of also sometimes it's worth taking the risk. I think I was, when I moved away from not doing Big Four, when I made that decision, that was like
it was a risk.
It was a risk, and I think classic accountant. I'm prudent. I'm risk averse. But it was a risk that that I think kind of going a traditional route will set you up kind of in a traditional way and all of that. But it was a risk that I'm so glad I took. I wouldn't have ended up at a firm that I really loved the experience at. I wouldn't have met Luke. Apti wouldn't have happened. And I wouldn't have kind of realized that dream of like the entrepreneurship space. So, I think sometimes the risks are worth taking.
A good calculated risk.
That's it, yeah.
Because the thing is as well, like on the end of a good calculated risk is so much possibility, but like the idea that everything you do, because I think content for me, this is where the idea plays for me. Every episode that I make, as much as I'm not maybe getting the results right now, it's usually 2 years in. It's usually 3 years in doing something that you start to see those compounding results. So that's also another factor. The study that you do today, sort of view it, especially in your brain, as this thing that's going to compound over time. Like you don't really see the knowledge, because like you're just trying to pass sometimes. Try not to just pass. Try to understand the stuff. But the compounding effect, that for me also is a chance factor. Like you don't really feel it, but one day you're gonna look back and you'll be like, whoa, that book that I read back in 2020 changed my life, and that it's still profiting you today. So it's the same with your qualifications and your degree.
Yeah, that's it.
Guys, if you have not already, please, please follow this if you're listening. Nick, this is fantastic. And yeah, man, I hope people can take some inspiration, some lessons from your founder's journey thus far. There's still so much ahead. And, as an entrepreneur, as a soon-to-be, hopefully, CASA, man, it was such a pleasure to have you, and I'm blessed to have met you, man.
Jeez, Olunga, no, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. Really appreciate you having me on. And I think what you're doing here is absolutely fantastic. I wish there'd been something like this when I was studying, I must say.
Thanks,
I think it's really inspirational, and appreciate you inviting me on, and excited to see where your journey lands you.
Thank you, man. Guys, again, it's in the show notes, Apti. Go Go and use. Make sure your talent is put to good use, please, guys. Never waste talent. Thank you so much, Nic.
Thanks, Alunga.